Out of the way, it's my privilege to introduce our esteemed keynote speaker today, Dr. Kabrena Rodda. Dr. Rodda is a renowned expert in analytical chemistry and a visionary leader with a distinguished career spanning both academia and the military. As the research line manager at Pacific Northwest National Laboratory and a former colonel in the U.S. Air Force, Dr. Rodda has a unique perspective on fostering high-performance teams. Dr. Rodda has also penned a comprehensive policy paper on synthetic drugs, a testament to her commitment to shaping the future. Today, Dr. Rodda will share her invaluable knowledge on empowering teams, how to stay sane while maximizing your impact. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Dr. Kabrena Rodda. Following the presentation, we will have a Q&A session, so we welcome any questions that you may have. Please ask questions using the Q&A system to the right-hand side of the video player. And without further ado, I will now hand over to Dr. Rodda to begin her presentation.
All right, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. And again, my name is Dr. Kabrena Rodda, and I am a research line manager at Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. Today, I'm really excited to talk to you about two things that are very important to me. I'm very passionate about. The first of all, it's about maximizing your impact, not just within your teams, but in your organization as a whole. And of course, obviously extending that to high impact for your customers. Secondly, and just as important, if not more so, is staying sane while you do all of that. And the beauty of it is that the key to both is truly empowering your teams. And that's the crux of what we're going to get to today. So, as leading laboratories in today's fast-paced environment has never been more challenging than it is today. Between ensuring safe operating environments for your staff, staying on top of the seemingly endless stream of information coming at you at any given time, strategic planning and execution, recruiting, and just as important, retaining top talent, managing institutional risk, and yes, handling the occasional interpersonal conflicts that arise from time to time, the demands on us as lab managers seem never-ending. There's no way you could do it all on your own, no matter how good you are. You need help, not only to get it all done, but to keep from going crazy. But how do you do that? We all know hiring highly capable direct reports is crucial to our success. But truly empowering them for appropriate decisive action doesn't just happen. Empowering another person first means establishing mutual trust and rapport with them, such that not only do they know what to do, but they develop the confidence to act. And for you, it requires you to develop sufficient confidence that they will act, and not only act, but they will act in accordance with your overall objectives to achieve your desired outcome. Basketball is a great analogy here. Just like in basketball, every single player needs to learn to work with their team. Your teammates need to position themselves physically to be able to catch the ball if and when you throw it to them. And you need to have confidence that the person you throw it to will catch it, and if all goes well, make the shot. Even if you have great players on your team, that's not necessarily a given. The reason for that is that your team has to get to know and appreciate each other's strengths and their weaknesses. And they have to understand that they win or lose as a team. If you're successful, eventually, you might even achieve such synchronicity that you can pull off a no-look pass, where you, as the player in possession, throw the ball to a teammate without even looking at them, and they catch it without skipping a beat, and they make the shot. Today, I'm going to talk about 10 best practices or keys that I've learned over the years to help develop my staff, thereby increasing our overall impact. I should note that little of what I'm going to share is original on my part. Rather, it's the collection of insights and helpful hints I've learned from great leaders I've had the good fortune to work with and from books I've read. Not every key is useful in every situation, so think of this as a bag of M&Ms. Take some that you like and pass it on. There's enough for everyone. So, first things first. The very first key is you hired humans and not robots. Things will go wrong. Real life is messy. You, as the leader, have to get okay with that. If you're really going to empower anyone to act on your behalf, you have to accept that they may not quite do things exactly the way you wanted, and they will sometimes make mistakes. That does not mean that you should lower your expectations, though. So set lofty goals and inspire your staff to achieve them. They will rise to the occasion. But at the same time, recognize and don't be surprised when, since they are not robots, things go wrong. The second key is one size does not fit all. Humans are individuals, and there's a lot of talk about treating people equally, but I would rephrase that to say it's important to treat everyone equitably, because you also need to recognize their individual gifts and areas where improvement is needed, and everybody is different. What motivates you may not motivate me, and what may seem like a very exciting growth opportunity for one person may make another person want to poke their eyes out. Take time to really get to know your staff. What drives them? Where do they shine? And then, when something goes wrong, seek to understand the underlying challenges, not just the presenting situation. That will help you understand whether the cause was perhaps due to an intentional wrongdoing or will problem, or an unintended misstep, which might be just a skill problem on the staff member's part. It's commonly referred to as skill versus will, but I would caution that relying too heavily on that concept decreases your chances of identifying the root cause, because there's more to the story. And as I said earlier, real life is messy. So when something goes wrong, it's tempting to think just in terms of what the staff member did wrong. And again, that drives the discussion around skill versus will problems. The specific shortcoming of that approach is that it assumes the staff member needs to be fixed, and it ignores other factors, structural factors perhaps, that may have contributed to the problem. So it's important to think about these other factors, such as if you are encouraging a certain behavior, but nobody else in the organization is exhibiting that behavior, it's going to be more challenging for your people to do it. That's called social motivation. Secondly, there needs to be people in your organization with the resources necessary and the support to encourage the desired outcome. If we're not willing to provide training or time or whatever it is that the people need to do to be effective, then our staff are going to be less likely to achieve the desired outcome. Thirdly, what are we rewarding? A good example here is encouraging your staff to self-report accidents. If we say that, but then we hammer somebody when they self-report, then that is going to dissuade them from self-reporting. Lastly, have we established and organized our teams and distributed roles to be supportive of the right behaviors and desired outcomes? Again, if something goes wrong, it's best to think through this matrix before you look to trying to fix your staff, because it may be that these problems are at play. And even if the other person is wrong, you're going to need to address these additional factors. All right, so moving on to the next key, everyone needs a spotter. Your direct reports all have different strengths and development needs, like I just said a few moments ago. But just like in weightlifting, as lab leaders, when we delegate a task, we need to spot the delegate. What that means is that if the staff member has never performed the task, you need to be heavily involved to ensure task completion. But you need to make sure that you leave the bar in their hands, because that's how they get stronger. Let them handle as much as they can, understanding that it may be that you end up carrying most of the weight. But by doing that over time, they will get stronger and more confident and require less direct support from you. On the other hand, there are some people who are very strong and very confident, and they really don't need much support from you as the leader. In those instances, though, while it can be uh, desirable to simply hand it off to the other person, it's still important to stay engaged, pay attention to what's going on. Because if nothing else, you get the opportunity to see them excel and celebrate their success with them. All right, key number 4 is one of my favorites. Don't be a bystander. If someone willfully does something wrong, be an upstander, not a bystander. You absolutely must call out bad behavior or wrongdoing and take action. As leaders, our staff are always watching and learning, not just by what we say and do, but by what we don't say and do. So if you ignore a bad situation, you do so at the peril of the health of your organization as a whole, and you erode your credibility and effectiveness as a manager. Further, it emboldens the person who did wrong to do it again in the future. Establish an expectation of professional behavior and set the example. Encourage your staff to self-report mishaps. And remember that bringing things into the light helps you fix them and makes it harder for wrongdoers to hide. All right. So the next key is important does not equal urgent. It can be so desirable to just focus on what's at the top of your inbox, what is coming right into your face right at the moment. But the thing that is in your face is maybe not the most important thing. And that's the key to what we call the Eisenhower box. It got its name because former President Dwight D. Eisenhower once quoted a former college president saying, "I have two kinds of problems, the urgent and the important. The urgent are not important, and the important are never urgent." When trying to grapple with all the demands on our time, it can be tempting to take immediate action on whatever crosses our desk so we can be done with it. But few things truly require immediate action, and many of the problems that require our involvement require input from others to ensure we make the right decision. I like to think of it this way. Few things are truly matters of life or death, requiring that immediate action. And those that are urgent are obvious. For example, rushing to pull someone out of the way of a speeding train so they don't get run over. That's urgent. It's also important, but perhaps maybe not the most important thing that you had on your schedule for the day. If it's not really a life or death situation, and very few things are, there is time to reach out to trusted advisors for their insights. Then, once you have all the needed information, it is also usually a good idea to sleep on it overnight. If your intended action still seems like the right decision after a night's rest, move ahead. The Eisenhower decision matrix is a useful construct for helping decide what issues actually require your involvement and what things need immediate action, but also help you discern what is something that either you can delegate or just take off your to-do list and not worry about. If used appropriately, eventually you will find you have only a few things in the do this now box, which in turn allows you time to focus on completing the important but not urgent tasks in the do this later box. All right, key number 6 is that diversity strengthens teams. Here, alloys are a great analogy. Alloys are often stronger than pure metals because of their tightly packed atoms and the different sizes of their atoms. The tightly packed atoms enable additional elements to be packed into an alloy's lattice structure, making it harder for atoms to move around. And the different atom sizes in an alloy distort the layers of atoms in the pure metal, making it harder for the layers to slide over each other without more force. Together, those two aspects make alloys stronger generally. So taking this analogy a little bit further, if you wanted to add a specific metal, perhaps nickel, to your alloy, you wouldn't just look for whatever nickel you could find. You would seek out trusted nickel producers for help finding nickel from a specific type of ore to produce the characteristics you desire in your alloy. Similarly, when recruiting, while you might have a specific background in mind in a candidate for a job, you may be more likely to find strong candidates with a desired background by developing relationships with trusted gatekeepers to pools of people with the background in mind, rather than just cherry picking candidates because they may look a certain way or have a certain experience in their background. It takes more effort and time to do this, but ultimately it's more likely to lead to success. All right. Key number 7 is no drama queens. This one's pretty self-explanatory. When things go wrong, as they always will, tempers run high, and sometimes people say or do things in response that they later regret. As lab leaders, we need to keep cool heads. Don't add to the drama. There's going to be enough already without you adding to it. If something upsets you, take a moment by yourself to pull yourself together and don't engage until you've calmed down. On this note, it's also important to make sure you're attending to self-care. It can often seem like there's never enough time to tend to those personal needs and to just put them on the shelf for later. But remember what I said about urgent versus important. Just like they say on the airplanes, in an emergency, put your own mask on first, then help others. You are no use to anyone if you pass out or lose control of yourself. Here, there's another handy acronym that I like to bear in mind. If you're feeling stressed or upset, ask yourself, am I hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, or some combination of those things? Chances are it's at least one. And sometimes when it feels like the world is going to end, all you really need is a sandwich and a nap. All right, key number 8 is eat a frog a day. When we have something, an unpleasant task to do, it can be very tempting to put it off until later in favor of those tasks that are more enjoyable. But Mark Twain put it well. He once famously said, if it's your job to eat a frog, it's best to do it first thing in the morning. And if it's your job to eat 2 frogs, it's best to eat the biggest one first. As I said, it can be tempting to put off an unpleasant task, but it's best if you don't. Get the information you need. Talk to your advisors. Just getting the gumption to do that part and arm yourself can make the task seem more manageable. But then, once you have armed yourself with all the information you need, take action. Letting difficult or unpleasant tasks sit out unaddressed only stinks up the place. And in the end, you'll still have to deal with them. The added bonus of following Twain's advice is that you immediately have a sense of accomplishment, and that can be an encouragement to you as you continue about your day. Key number 9 is be the mirror. Sometimes we have constructive feedback to give, and that can be unpleasant. We don't want to be mean. We don't want to be seen as the bad guy, but it can be helpful to think of giving feedback as holding up a mirror for another person. It gives them the opportunity to see for themselves how their words or actions are being experienced by other people. We sometimes find it difficult to give constructive feedback because, as I said, we don't want to seem mean or hypercritical. Sometimes we wonder if what we're seeing is really what's happening or if we're just having a bad day. But the truth is that without that constructive feedback, our staff can't work on improving. So this doesn't mean that you have to be harsh. You can be gentle in your delivery, but never withhold feedback. All right, key number 10, turbulence happens. So we might want to delude ourselves into thinking that if we work hard enough and think far enough ahead, we can avoid difficulty, but that's not realistic. The messiness of real life is unavoidable. For example, when you show up for basic training in the military, they teach you the position of attention, which involves standing up straight, hands cupped, thumbs on the seam of your trousers, feet at a 45-degree angle, shoulders back and down, chin in, and forehead back. Those last three provide fodder for endless corrections from the drill sergeants or cadre. Try it. It's not at all natural. And it's impossible to put your chin in, forehead back, and shoulders down all at once without extreme effort and pain. They also teach you the 7 basic responses. Yes, sir, no excuse, sir, I do not know, sir, I do not understand, sir, may I ask a question, sir, may I make a statement. When I entered basic training, I somehow made it some 18 hours without making a mistake. I listened intently and tried to do absolutely everything right, even as my classmates started getting yelled at for some minor infraction. I thought to myself, all I have to do is keep this up for the next 11 months. Piece of cake. So when I finally did make a mistake, I thought my world was going to end. And it took a fair bit of time to build my confidence back up. And that, in turn, led me to make more mistakes. I would have been much better served making peace with the fact that at some point, something was going to go wrong, and I would get yelled at. My last boss in the Air Force, Lieutenant General Michelle Johnson, called these difficulties turbulence. And she had this great flying analogy for dealing with difficult things in life. She used to say, turbulence happens. Set your attitude so you come out of it nose high and in a climb. Don't try to avoid challenges. Face them head on, but arm yourself with good advice and stay positive. Your staff will take their cues from you. So there you have it. 10 keys for empowerment for your teams and for sanity for you. It may be obvious to say, but these keys won't guarantee that you or your staff will always be successful or that you won't face challenges. However, I have found them to be helpful in strengthening my teams, which in turn makes it easier to delegate, which again, in turn, ultimately helps keep some sort of life-work balance and sanity for me and the teams. I'll finish this off by reminding you of something I said at the outset. While these keys may sound simple, they don't just happen. It takes practice. Try them on for size and see how they work for you, understanding it may feel awkward or difficult at first. But it's kind of like physical therapy where you are retraining your body to do things in a different way. In the long run, even if it feels weird initially, implementing these changes will likely increase your chances of success. So take a deep breath and get on that stability ball and get back up on it if and when you fall. Practice makes perfect. And with that, I will end this by thanking you all for your time and attention today, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you so much, Kabrena, for kickstarting today's symposium, and we've all found your insights incredibly valuable. I know we're all eager to learn more about your expertise. We've received a fantastic range of questions from the audience, covering everything from team management to work-life balance. So let's dive right in, shall we? So, in your experience, what are the biggest challenges lab managers face in today's fast-paced environment?
I would say the biggest challenge is just coping with the inertia. If we only had to handle all of the issues that we handle for a short period of time, it wouldn't be that hard. But the pace never ends, and sometimes it can be tempting to decide to just take it easy one day. But unfortunately, the issues that we deal with don't take a break. And we always need to be finding time not just to deal with the immediate, truly urgent issues, but also the important things that might take more time.
Absolutely. So, in your opinion, as a follow up from that, how do you think that you can prioritize those challenges effectively? So, prioritizing your time as a lab manager.
So again, that Eisenhower matrix is very, very helpful. determining whether it's something that you actually have to do, or whether it's something that either you can delegate to someone else, or maybe it's something that actually doesn't need to be done at all. And I think the second piece of that is just taking a pause. It's easy to fall into the habit of just going into your email and starting to address whatever's at the top. But step back, take a breath, and think about, is this something that really needs my attention right now? And is it something that is important but somebody else can do?
Excellent. Thank you so much for that insight. And I think another one of the questions that we had submitted follows on from that a bit as well, in that work-life balance is also crucial for lab managers. So do you have any strategies that you recommend for staying sane whilst managing that workload?
Yes. So something that I have instituted into my daily life, although I have to admit I don't always follow it, is committing to not looking at my phone to check email after a certain time at night. When I sit down for dinner, I put my phone down and I try my best to leave it alone until the morning. If there is something truly critical, somebody will call me, and it may be that I do have to address it, but I often find simply leaving the email until the morning helps guard that precious time with my family.
Excellent advice there, I think. Thank you so much. We have had a great question from Ali come through saying, I would love to hear any specific suggestions or examples you have of providing constructive feedback and how to be firm when your instinct is to be more wishy-washy.
Yeah, giving feedback that is useful is important, and I try to keep that in mind. So a method that has been taught to me is to describe the behavior. First of all, make sure that you're not upset when you give the feedback. Then describe the behavior specifically. Then explain why the behavior or the performance is a problem. What is going to happen because of this behavior? And then lastly, finish with an explanation of what you would like them to do instead. So what that might look like is, hey, John, I noticed that you sent an email to Jane yesterday in which you yelled at them for something that they did. This is a problem because emails can be misconstrued because they can't hear your tone of voice and they don't have an opportunity immediately to respond. So it puts them on the defensive. And because of that, it's less likely that you will be able to mend the relationship. In the future, I would prefer that when you have something that upsets you about how somebody else is performing their work or treating you, that you find a time to go and talk to them face to face and work it out that way. That's going to give you a much higher chance of getting the outcome that you're out looking for in the first place.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. I think that example made that really clear as well. So another question that we've had in from Maria here is, how do you inspire high productivity, morale, and independence amongst your team members?
Well, something that the military is very high on is inspiring others through your own example. So obviously, the people who report to you may be less motivated to work hard if they don't see you doing it. That said, it's also true that people may still not be motivated even if you are presenting the best possible example. So then it goes back to spending time to get to know the people that are working for you and get a sense of what it is that motivates them and try to appeal to them on a personal level. That's going to be something different in different circumstances, but I do believe that everybody wants to do a good job and wants to have a positive impact. So just getting to know them enough to figure out what are the things that would encourage them to do a better job or work harder can be helpful. Sometimes it can seem like somebody is being lazy, but then in actual fact, sometimes there can be a structural factor at play that is causing them to be less motivated. So as you get to know them, you also get a chance to find out if there are barriers standing in their way of doing the best that they can.
Brilliant, thank you so much. And I think I've got a great question here from Adama to follow on from that. So what the best strategy is, so you've said about analysing what barriers are in the way for your staff members, but if you do see a continuous exhibition of indiscipline, lack of dedication or poor performance, how do you handle that?
Yeah, well, you can't ignore it. Sometimes we don't want to because we don't want to come across as the angry manager or the mean manager. But it's a possibility that nobody has previously given them that feedback before. And so you need to confront them. That will also give them a chance to explain what is going on. Again, it might be that there's poor performance, but there might be additional factors at play, either personally or professionally. And then you need to document it. And this is where, again, the tyranny of the email and all of the other tasks can seem to get in the way, and you can tell yourself, well, I'll take care of that documentation later, but it's best to go ahead and have the conversation and then document it in an email, and you can simply email it to the person and say, hey, I've just taken an opportunity to summarize our conversation. Does this match your recollection? And then that also gives them a chance to correct you if you walked away misunderstanding something. And unfortunately, sometimes it can take a lot of repeated conversations and documentation before either the staff member corrects the problem or you get to the point where you've documented it enough that you can take disciplinary action. I'll say disciplinary action is not something any of us want to do, but sometimes it's the right thing to do.
Lovely, thank you so much for that one. And somewhat on the same lines with our people conversation that we're having at the moment, someone has asked, recruiting and retaining top talent is a constant battle for them. What are your top tips for attracting and keeping valuable team members?
Yeah. The recruiting piece is something that's slightly different depending on where you are, but obviously offering good incentive packages is helpful. But again, making people feel like they connect with your team is also very important. Chances are if somebody is interviewing with you, they are interviewing with a lot of different places. And while sort of objective factors like the specific type of work that they'll be doing and the location are certainly important, feeling like they sync with the team that they're going to be working with is important as well. So try to make that personal connection. Don't just focus on the job. In terms of recruiting, I think it's about checking in with your staff recurringly throughout the year to make sure that they are feeling challenged but not overwhelmed, and excited about what they are doing. So it may be that maybe it's a high performer and after a while they start to lag in their performance. That might be a signal, not that there's that they have a will issue, but that they're not being challenged. And so that might be a clue to talk with them about other opportunities within your organization that would excite them and kind of ignite that passion once again.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. We are having a lot of questions come through for you, a lot of them about people skills and managing your team. So apologies to anyone if we don't get to all of them today. We do have Kabrena until for about the next 15 minutes, actually. So we'll do as many as we can, but rest assured I will pass these questions on if we do not get time for them today. So an excellent one from Tatiana here has asked for any examples of working in a very diverse group of staff, having different behaviours and an approach to interaction due to various cultural backgrounds.
Well, that's a great question. I would offer that every group is diverse, even if they don't look diverse. We all have different experiences in our background, and even people in that have grown up and are working in the same area all their lives are going to have some different experiences. But it's obviously exaggerated if you have somebody in your team who comes from maybe another country or perhaps a very different socioeconomic background. I think there are a couple of things that are helpful. First of all is to get to know them just like you would somebody who is more similar to your background. Understand what drives them, which may or may not be similar to things that drive you. And then I would say that it's important to make sure that you're including them in everything that you do. So sometimes organizations can focus on recruiting a diverse workforce, and so they will look for certain socioeconomic backgrounds, but there won't be very many people with that same background, and they don't get integrated into the culture of the whole organization. They sort of are appreciated for their presence, but they're sort of not included when, say, everybody goes to lunch or something like that. Not intentionally, just because people don't think about the fact that maybe their different culture also brings different norms around when they want to go to eat, or the kinds of things they would like to eat, things like that. So I think this is where the treating equitably versus treating equally is kind of, there's an interplay there. You want to give equal chances to everybody, but you also want to appreciate and give equitable opportunity to people regardless of their background. I don't know if that answers the question, but
Thank you so much. I think that was a very comprehensive answer. And I think the bottom line is, depends on what people you're working with and to talk to people. I did get muddled up. I do apologise in terms of the timing when I said 15 minutes a moment ago. I did mean we're actually very much running out of time. So I think that we'll just have one last question with you, Kabrena, and that is, what top tip would you give to any lab manager or aspiring lab manager watching that is the key that you keep in your mind in your day-to-day?
I would say it's nurture and trust your inner voice. So we talk a lot about finding a good mentor, and that's important. But implicit in that can be, particularly for women, although this isn't just for women, a sense that we shouldn't trust our own voice, or we should trust the advice that we get from other people over our own internal voice. And there's a book called Playing Big by Tara Moore that talks a lot about this. But the idea is Many of us have had an experience where we're talking to a mentor about something that happened and the advice that they give us doesn't ring true. And the reason for that is because there's no way they could possibly know all the ins and outs of the situation, and only you know it. So she encourages you to take time to nurture your inner voice, learn to trust that inner voice. And then it doesn't mean that you don't ask others for their opinions about something, but then you bounce it off what that inner mentor is telling you. And I found the more I'm able to do that, the better able I am to make sound decisions in my professional life and personal life.
Lovely. I think that's a really apt way to end this session. So thank you so much, Kabrena. Unfortunately, that is all we have time for today. Any questions that we didn't have time to get to will be sent over to the speakers after the event. And as with all the other talks in this event, this talk will now be available to view whenever you want for the next 30 days. A quick reminder that if you want to attend our next online symposium, Advances in Drug Discovery and Development, you can register for free through the link below the live stream player. And that just leaves me to say thank you once again, Dr. Kabrena Rodda, and we'll be back soon with the next talk.
Thank you.